The Galactic Empire had always been the largest and most powerful civilization in the galaxy. Their fleets stretched across star systems, their armies were unbeatable, and their technology far surpassed anything any species could imagine. No one dared challenge them. No one until Earth. For centuries, Earth had been a peaceful planet. Humans had slowly begun to reach for the stars, exploring nearby planets and developing their technology. But they were still a young species compared to the vast civilizations of the galaxy. They had only just started exploring beyond their own solar system when the Empire took notice. The Empire, however, saw no threat in humanity. To them, Earth was just another small, insignificant world filled with primitive creatures who still relied on ancient technology. They couldn't understand how a species so young could be of any importance, but they had decided that Earth would be theirs to conquer, just like all the other planets they had taken before. Admiral Call, a high-ranking officer in the Empire's fleet, was tasked with leading the invasion. He was a seasoned veteran of many battles, known for his ruthlessness and confidence. He had seen countless worlds fall before the Empire's might and thought little of the humans on Earth. Their ships were slow, their weapons outdated, and their soldiers weak compared to the Empire's well-trained warriors. The Admiral had no doubts that this war would be over in days. Call's fleet, a massive armada of battleships and support craft, arrived in Earth's orbit. From space, the planet looked peaceful, almost too peaceful. The Admiral couldn't help but feel that these humans were unprepared for the storm that was about to come. His orders were clear: destroy their defenses, crush their resistance, and make them surrender. The first message was sent to Earth. A booming voice echoed across all communication channels. People of Earth, you are now under the control of the Galactic Empire. Surrender your cities, your resources, and your future. Failure to comply will result in total destruction. We give you one chance to submit. Do not make us wait. The humans, however, did not panic. Instead, they gathered their leaders in a massive underground war room, deep beneath the Earth's surface. They knew the Empire was powerful, but they also knew that humanity had survived the worst in its history. Wars, natural disasters, even near extinction. Humans had fought back every time. The United Nations, the global government that had brought the world together, issued its response. A calm, steady voice spoke through the airwaves. We hear you, Galactic Empire, but we are not afraid. You may have power, but we have something you cannot understand: our will to survive. We will fight for our homes, our families, and our future. This is your warning. You may leave now, or you may regret it. Admiral Call listened to the message, and a cruel smile spread across his face. He found the humans' words amusing. They thought they could stand against the might of the Empire. It would be an easy victory. With a single command, he ordered his fleet to prepare for the first strike. The Empire's ships moved into position, ready to destroy Earth's meager defenses. But the humans weren't as defenseless as they seemed. While the rest of the world watched in fear, the leaders of Earth's united forces had spent years preparing for this day. They had known the Empire might come one day, and they had learned from their past mistakes. In secret, Earth had developed a new technology: stealth drones that could fly undetected by even the most advanced sensors. These drones were equipped with powerful electromagnetic pulses, EMP, capable of disabling the Empire's weapon systems and shields. The humans had hidden them in the asteroid belt just outside Earth's orbit, ready to strike. As the Empire's ships began their attack, the humans unleashed their first countermeasure. Dozens of stealth drones shot from their hiding places and flew toward the Imperial fleet. The Empire's ships tried to track them, but it was too late. The EMP pulses hit their targets with deadly accuracy. Within moments, several of the Empire's warships were disabled, their shields flickering and their weapons silenced. Admiral Call was stunned. He had underestimated these humans, but this was just the beginning. His fleet was powerful, and their advanced weapons would tear through Earth's defenses in no time. But for the first time in his career, the Admiral began to feel a small doubt creeping into his mind. Perhaps these humans were not as weak as he had believed. He clenched his fists, staring at Earth's blue and green surface below. No matter. They will fall before the might of the Galactic Empire. We will show them how foolish it is to challenge us. But deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that Earth was not like the other worlds he had conquered. There was something about this small planet that was different, a stubborn strength that no one, not even the mighty Empire, could fully understand. The Empire's first attack was swift and overwhelming. Their massive warships filled the skies, their engines humming with the power of advanced technology. On the ground, humans watched in fear as the Empire's invasion force landed in multiple cities across the planet. The Imperial fleet was massive, much larger than anything humanity had ever seen. And yet, Earth's defenders were not intimidated. At the heart of the world's defense, the United Nations Space Command, UNSC, had already mobilized their forces. They had a plan, though it was far from perfect. Humanity was facing a battle they never expected to fight, but their unity and courage were unshakable. The first line of defense was Earth's atmospheric fighters, though they were outdated compared to the Empire's high-tech ships. Still, humans didn't give up easily. As the first waves of the Empire's ships approached, Earth's pilots launched into the sky, ready to face impossible odds. Their weapons, though primitive, were aimed with deadly precision. In space, the battle was fierce. The Empire's flagship, Indomitable, floated like a giant in the dark void of space. It was designed to be an unstoppable force, but the humans had something the Empire hadn't counted on: their courage. The fighters of Earth harassed the Imperial ships with every weapon at their disposal. Though they couldn't stop the enemy, they could slow them down. Inside the flagship, Admiral Call watched as his fleet engaged the human resistance. He was confident that victory was near. After all, the Empire's technology was far superior to anything humans could muster. But the humans weren't retreating. They were fighting back, fearlessly, even when they knew they were outgunned. On Earth's surface, the Empire's ground forces began their assault. Massive robotic soldiers marched across cities, crushing everything in their path. The Empire had brought powerful weaponry designed to eliminate any resistance, but once again, they had underestimated the resilience of humanity. Instead of cowering in fear, Earth's defenders fought back with whatever they could find. In one of the cities under attack, a group of civilians, farmers, doctors, teachers, banded together to protect their homes. Armed with nothing but homemade weapons and a will to survive, they launched a surprise counterattack against a group of invading soldiers. One of the civilians, a woman named Maria, managed to sabotage an Empire tank using nothing but a few old tools and her knowledge of mechanical systems. She didn't know exactly how to disable the tank, but she knew it was possible. Working quickly, she crawled beneath the vehicle, using her tools to pry open its underbelly. With a few sharp movements, she triggered an explosion, disabling the tank and sending a message to the Empire. Humans would not be easy prey. Meanwhile, on the Imperial fleet, Call was becoming frustrated. His forces were too powerful, and yet they couldn't seem to break through the human resistance. What surprised him the most was the way the humans fought. They were not soldiers, but they fought like warriors. They used the land, the cities, and even their own technology to slow the Empire down. As Call watched his ships lose ground, he ordered his fleet to increase their firepower. He wasn't about to let a primitive species stand in his way. His next move was to deploy the Empire's devastating ground troops. Massive mechanical walkers designed to crush any force that dared oppose them. These machines could easily destroy a city with a single step, and Call was sure they would break the human spirit. But once again, the humans surprised him. As the mechanical walkers moved into the cities, they found themselves under attack from all sides. Humans had rigged up hidden explosives and set traps. The walkers, so confident in their power, were unaware of the danger. One by one, they fell, exploding in fiery bursts as humans continued to fight back with resourcefulness. On the ground, Maria and her group of civilians didn't stop. They fought for their homes, their families, and their future. They knew they were outnumbered, but they refused to surrender. As long as there was hope, they would keep fighting. In space, the human fleet continued to harass the Empire's warships, making them pay for every inch of ground they gained. Earth's fighters, though outnumbered, used guerrilla tactics to disable several Imperial ships. The fight was turning into a brutal contest of willpower. The Empire thought this would be easy, but now they were beginning to understand just how wrong they were. Admiral Call paced back and forth on his flagship, his temper growing. He had never expected this kind of resistance. He had underestimated humanity. The humans weren't going to run. They weren't going to surrender. They should have listened. Ninkal muttered to himself, staring out into the blackness of space. We warned them to run. But the humans hadn't run. Instead, they were standing tall, and it was beginning to feel like the Empire's victory was far from guaranteed. The battle for Earth was intensifying. On the surface, cities once filled with peaceful citizens were now the battlegrounds of a fierce war. The Empire's forces, confident that victory was within their grasp, continued their relentless assault. But the humans were proving to be far more resourceful than anyone had anticipated. In one city, the Empire's troops were struggling to break through the last line of human defense. Soldiers and civilians had joined forces, turning the streets into makeshift fortresses. They used everything they had: abandoned vehicles, broken structures, and even their own hands to fight back. Every corner of the city became a trap for the Empire's advanced machines. Maria, the woman who had destroyed an Empire tank, was leading a small group of resistance fighters. Her group had become something of a symbol of hope for the people. Despite having no formal military training, they had learned how to strike at the heart of the Empire's forces. They used guerrilla tactics, working together to disable tanks, damage walkers, and take down Imperial soldiers one by one. "This is our home," Maria said, her voice steady as she looked over the city. "We won't let them take it without a fight." As they prepared for another strike, the resistance fighters could hear the distant rumble of Empire machines coming closer. It was a warning that the next wave of attack was near. The Empire's walkers were heavy, their footsteps shaking the ground. But the humans had already prepared. Hidden explosives were placed along the streets, and the resistance fighters waited in the shadows, ready to strike. In space, the situation was no better for the Empire. Nkal's fleet, once so confident of victory, was beginning to show signs of struggle. The human fighters had taken down several of the Empire's ships, and their stealth drones continued to disable the Empire's most powerful weapons. The Empire's once unstoppable fleet had been forced to retreat several times, unable to make the progress they had planned for. "We cannot let this continue," Ninkal growled, standing before his fleet commanders. "Send in reinforcements. I want those fighters gone, and I want this planet subdued." But even with reinforcements, the Empire was losing more ground. Earth's fighters, despite their limited resources, were making the most of every opportunity. They'd worked together as a team, using the terrain to their advantage. The Empire's advanced weapon systems could not predict every move the humans made, and they were paying the price for it. Back on Earth, Maria's group had learned to use the Empire's own machines against them. After disabling one of the Empire's walkers, they discovered a weak spot in its armor. It wasn't much, but it was enough to give them hope. Together with other resistance groups, they planned an attack that would hit the Empire's forces where they least expected. "We take out the walkers, and we take away their advantage," Maria said, her eyes determined. "We show them that humans don't just survive, we fight." The plan was simple but dangerous. The resistance fighters would ambush the Empire's machines at night, using the cover of darkness to strike. It was a risky move, but the humans had nothing to lose. Every moment they fought back, they bought more time for others to organize, to gather strength, and to come up with new ways to resist. Meanwhile, Enkal was growing increasingly frustrated. His fleet was in disarray, and reports from the ground were far from encouraging. The humans, with their primitive weapons and outdated technology, were not only holding their ground, they were pushing the Empire back. The Galactic Empire, which had conquered countless worlds, was now struggling to subdue a planet they had thought would be an easy victory. "This is absurd," Nenkal muttered as he paced in his command center. "How are these humans doing this? They should have already been defeated." But despite the Empire's overwhelming power, it was becoming clear that Earth had something the Empire could never understand: an unbreakable spirit. The humans were not just fighting for survival. They were fighting for their homes, their families, and their future. And as long as they had that will, they would not give up. Back on Earth, as the Resistance fighters moved into position for their ambush, the air was thick with anticipation. The Empire's walkers were drawing closer. Maria's heart raced as she glanced at her team. They were all afraid, but none of them showed it. They were ready. As the first walker came into view, the Resistance fighters struck with everything they had. Explosives were set off, and fire from human weapons hit the walkers' weak spots. One by one, the massive machines fell. The humans had proven something that the Empire had failed to see. Together, they were stronger than the mightiest machine. Enkal watched the reports from the battlefield, his eyes narrowing in disbelief. This can't be happening. These humans. But the truth was in front of him. Earth was not going down without a fight. And no matter how much the Empire tried to force their will upon it, they were beginning to realize that this was a war they might not win. As the battle raged on, it became clear that the Empire's once overconfident forces were facing something they had not expected. The humans, although vastly outgunned, were fighting with a fierce determination that no one had anticipated. The Empire's advanced weapons, their enormous warships, and their powerful machines had proven ineffective against the human resolve. On Earth, Maria and her group of fighters had just completed another successful ambush, taking down several more of the Empire's walkers. The ground was littered with the wreckage of the machines, their twisted metal serving as a reminder of what the humans were capable of. It was a small victory, but it meant the world to those fighting for their homes. "We're making progress," Maria said as she surveyed the destruction. "But we can't stop now. We need to keep pushing." Her words were met with determined nods from her team. They knew that the road ahead would be difficult. The Empire would not give up easily, but the humans had shown that they were more than capable of standing their ground. Meanwhile, in space, Admiral Enkal was seething with rage. His forces had been delayed again. The human fighters, despite their outdated ships and limited resources, were proving to be a thorn in the Empire's side. Enkal had always believed that humanity would fall easily, but now he was starting to question everything. "We need to crush them," he growled, his fists clenched. "Send in the heavy artillery. All ships, focus your firepower on their fleet. We will not let these insects continue to defy us." The Empire's warships, larger and more advanced than anything humanity had, prepared for a new offensive. They aimed their weapons at Earth's fleet, ready to destroy everything in their path. But even as the Empire prepared to strike, there was something stirring among the humans. The fighters, though tired, were determined to stand tall against the might of the Empire. In the heart of Earth's military command, General Taylor, the leader of the United Nations Space Command, stood before a map of Earth and the surrounding space. He knew the battle was far from over, but he also knew that the humans had something the Empire couldn't understand: unity. The humans weren't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for their way of life, their families, their future. And that made them stronger than any machine or warship. "We've got one chance at this," General Taylor said, his voice calm but firm. "We're going to hit them where it hurts. We've learned enough about their fleet and their strategies. It's time to turn the tables." With a nod from his commanders, the plan was set in motion. Earth's remaining fighters, along with newly formed squads of civilian volunteers, would launch a full-scale assault on the Empire's supply lines. They would strike quickly, with precision, targeting the Empire's resources and cutting off their ability to continue the war. Back on the ground, Maria and her team were preparing for their next mission. It was more dangerous than anything they had done before, but they were ready. They had learned to adapt, to use the Empire's own machines against them, and now they were going to do the same with their resources. "Let's show them what we're made of," Maria said, her voice filled with resolve. As the resistance fighters moved toward their next objective, the Empire's forces were preparing for an all-out assault. The Imperial fleet had launched a massive attack on Earth's defenses, sending waves of ships to bombard the cities and military bases. It seemed like nothing could stop the Empire now. But the humans were not so easily defeated. Despite the overwhelming firepower, they refused to break. The human fleet, though smaller and less advanced, fought with everything they had, determined to protect their planet. They used every trick in the book, striking from unexpected angles, harassing the Empire's ships, and dodging incoming fire with incredible skill. As the battle reached its peak, the humans' unity became more apparent than ever. Soldiers, pilots, civilians, everyone was working together toward a common goal. The Empire, with all its power, couldn't understand how a species so primitive could fight back with such strength. On the ground, Maria and her team faced a new challenge. The Empire had begun deploying even more advanced troops, elite soldiers in reinforced armor, designed to overpower any opposition. But the humans had adapted. They knew how to work together, how to outsmart the enemy. "We've faced worse," Maria said, leading her team into position. "We'll face this head-on." The Empire's elite soldiers advanced through the streets, their armor gleaming in the sun. But the humans were ready. They had set traps, placed explosives, and prepared for the worst. As the soldiers moved forward, they found themselves ambushed from all sides. The Empire's elite forces were not invincible. One by one, the humans disabled their attackers, using the element of surprise and their knowledge of the terrain to outmaneuver the Empire's best soldiers. It was a hard-fought battle, but the humans were slowly turning the tide. Back in space, N'Kal was watching the battle unfold. He had never expected this level of resistance. The humans had proven to be far more than just a nuisance. They were a force to be reckoned with. As the Empire's ships continued their assault, the humans held strong. They had made it this far, and they weren't about to back down now. The war was far from over, but one thing was clear. The Empire had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. The battle had reached a critical point. Humanity was no longer simply defending. They were now taking the fight directly to the Empire. The resistance had learned from their mistakes, adapted their strategies, and become more skilled with every encounter. No longer outmatched, they had started turning the tide in their favor. Maria stood at the front lines, watching as her team prepared for their next mission. The latest reports from the human fleet were promising. The Empire's heavy artillery had been damaged, and the human fighters were capitalizing on every weakness. It was an opportunity they couldn't waste. "We've got one shot at this," Maria said, her voice steady, though the weight of the situation pressed heavily on her shoulders. "We take out their supply lines, and we cripple their ability to fight back." Her team nodded in agreement, each member aware of the risks. The Empire had begun to deploy their most advanced forces to Earth's surface, but the humans were prepared. They knew the Empire's weakness, its overconfidence. The more the Empire pushed, the more desperate they became. As the resistance fighters made their way to their target, a military base deep in the Empire's occupied zone, the Empire's fleet in space launched a series of orbital strikes. The explosions lit up the sky, sending shockwaves that rattled the ground below. Yet, the humans stood firm. Each strike only fueled their determination. "We can't let them intimidate us," said General Taylor, standing before his team. "We've faced worse, and we've come out on top. This is no different." On the ground, Maria's group was closing in on the base. The Empire had set up a fortified perimeter, surrounded by automated turrets and elite soldiers. The resistance fighters knew they were outnumbered, but they had something the Empire couldn't match: creativity and a deep love for their home. "We're going in," Maria said, leading the charge. "Keep it quiet and hit them where it hurts." The first wave of resistance fighters moved in, silently taking out the automated defenses. The Empire's soldiers, caught off guard, scrambled to react, but it was too late. The humans had already breached the perimeter. The Empire's soldiers were skilled, but they weren't used to fighting in the shadows. Maria's team worked in perfect unison, planting explosives on key structures, disabling the base's power grid, and sending a message to the Empire. Humanity was not to be underestimated. In space, Admiral Call was growing more frustrated by the minute. His forces, once unstoppable, were now showing cracks. The human fleet had managed to disable several of his warships, and the constant guerrilla attacks on Earth were taking a toll. The more he sent his forces to Earth, the more they seemed to get bogged down. "We need to crush their morale," Call muttered to himself. "If we can break their will to fight, we win." But he underestimated one thing: the human spirit. It wasn't just about firepower. It was about hope. And as long as the humans held on to that hope, the Empire couldn't break them. Back on Earth, Maria's group had planted the final explosives. They had done it. The Empire's base was in ruins, and their supply lines were effectively cut off. The resistance fighters didn't stay to watch the destruction. They moved quickly, already preparing for the next phase of the war. "We've done it," one of the fighters said, breathing heavily from the exertion. "They'll have a hard time getting back on their feet now." Maria nodded. "We're not finished yet. This is just the beginning. They've underestimated us from the start, but now they'll know who they're dealing with." The human fleet, still outnumbered, had taken advantage of the disruption caused by the attack on the Empire's supply lines. With their forces weakened and their morale shaken, the Empire was in disarray. The humans had once been the underdogs, but now they were striking back with force, hitting the Empire where it hurt most: its resources. General Taylor's voice crackled over the comms as the news spread. "This is it, people. The tide is turning. We've shown the Empire that we can win, and now they're on the defensive." The battle was far from over, but for the first time since the war began, there was a glimmer of hope. The humans had proven they could take on the Empire head-to-head, and they weren't about to stop now. Call, however, refused to acknowledge defeat. He ordered the remaining fleet to regroup and prepare for an all-out assault on Earth. The humans had delayed him, but he would not let them win. "Prepare to make Earth regret its defiance," he snarled. "We will make them pay for every inch they've gained." But even as Call issued his orders, the humans were already making their next move. The resistance had a plan. They were ready to take the fight to the heart of the Empire. The battle was no longer about survival. It was about freedom. And the humans, with their unwavering resolve, were ready to take the next step. The humans had won a crucial victory, but they knew it wasn't over yet. The Empire, though shaken, was far from defeated. The blow to their supply lines had caused significant damage, but it had only pushed them into a corner. Now, the Empire's response would be more vicious, and the humans needed to be ready. Maria, standing with her team in their makeshift command center, reviewed the latest intel. The Empire was regrouping, its remaining forces becoming more concentrated. They were preparing for a final push, one that would leave nothing standing. "This is it," Maria said, her voice grim but determined. "We've made them angry, and now they'll come at us with everything they've got." General Taylor's voice came over the comms, steady but serious. "We know they're preparing to make their final assault. We can't back down. If we hold our ground, we win. If we fall, it's all over." The resistance fighters were ready. They had trained for months, adapting to every Empire tactic and countering with their own strategies. Now, They were prepared to face the full might of the Empire. In space, Admiral Call was furious. His fleet had suffered significant losses in the past few weeks, and the humans' hit-and-run tactics were beginning to break the morale of his forces. But he wasn't ready to admit defeat. The Empire had crushed countless civilizations before, and it would not let a primitive species like humanity stand in their way. The humans think they've won, Call said to his officers, his voice cold. But this war is far from over. We will show them what happens when they challenge the might of the Empire. The Imperial fleet was already preparing for its massive final assault. Hundreds of warships, loaded with weapons and soldiers, were poised to strike. The Empire was throwing everything it had left at Earth. Their plan was simple: overwhelm the human defenses with sheer force. On the ground, Maria's group was finalizing their preparations. They knew they would face overwhelming odds, but they had something the Empire didn't: home field advantage. The humans knew their planet, every hidden valley and mountain pass, every forest and city. They would use this knowledge to their advantage. "We've trained for this," Maria said to her team as they armed themselves. "We're not just fighting for Earth, we're fighting for the future of humanity. We can't let them win." Her words were met with determined nods. The humans may have been outnumbered, but they were not outmatched. They had fought through every challenge the Empire had thrown at them so far, and now they were ready for the final battle. The Empire's forces landed on Earth's surface in waves, hundreds of armored troops flooding the landscape. Their battle walkers stomped through forests and cities, laying waste to everything in their path. But the humans were not running. They had no intention of surrendering. The resistance fighters struck from the shadows, using guerrilla tactics to take down the walkers and disrupt the Empire's forces. They had learned how to disable the advanced technology the Empire relied on, and now they were using that knowledge to strike back. "We're hitting them hard," one of Maria's team members said, as another walker went down in flames. "But we can't let up. We need to take out their command center." Maria nodded. "That's the key. If we can take out their leadership, we can break their army." The battle raged on, both on the ground and in space. The human fleet, though smaller, was fighting with everything they had, targeting the Empire's warships and preventing them from getting too close to Earth. The Empire's superiority in numbers was undeniable, but the human sheer determination was keeping them at bay. In space, Admiral Call watched as the human fleet performed daring maneuvers, striking fast and retreating before he could respond. They were relentless, and it was becoming harder to predict their movements. "We need to end this now," Call growled. "No more delays." But back on Earth, the humans weren't just trying to survive. They were fighting back with a fury the Empire had not expected. Every inch they gained, every Empire soldier they took down, was a victory. The human resistance had become a force to be reckoned with, and the Empire was beginning to realize that they were not dealing with an easy target. Maria's group had reached the Empire's command center, located deep in the heart of the occupied zone. The building was heavily guarded, but the humans were ready. They fought their way through, using every tactic at their disposal. And one by one, the Empire's defenses began to crumble. "We're almost there," Maria said, leading her team forward. "Keep pushing." They fought through the final wave of soldiers, their weapons blazing, until they reached the control room. With a final explosion, the Empire's leadership on Earth was taken out. The command center fell, and with it, the Empire's ability to coordinate their assault. General Taylor's voice crackled through the comms again. "Well done, everyone. The Empire's command structure is gone. We've taken a major step toward victory." Maria took a deep breath. The battle was not over, but this victory had changed everything. The humans had not only held their ground, but had struck a devastating blow to the Empire's leadership. The tide had truly turned. Now the humans were ready for the final push. They were no longer just defending. They were taking the fight to the heart of the Empire. And nothing, Not even the vast forces of the Empire could stop them now. The final battle had arrived. The Empire's last wave of attacks was coming, and Maria stood on the front lines with her team. They had come so far, fighting every step of the way, but now the stakes were higher than ever. The Empire's last push would be their greatest effort to break humanity, but the resistance was ready. In space, the human fleet was assembling for one last defense. The Empire's massive warships loomed in the sky, their firepower unmatched. But the humans had their own secret weapon, unity. They fought not just for survival, but for their future, for their families, and for their freedom. Maria looked to her team as they prepared for the final assault. Their faces were a mixture of determination and exhaustion. They had been fighting for months, but they weren't going to stop now. "We've won every battle up to this point," Maria said, her voice steady. "We've proven we can take them on. But this is it. They won't stop until they've wiped us out. But we're not giving up. We fight, or we die trying." Her team nodded, ready for whatever came next. They had faced impossible odds before, and now they were going to face the biggest challenge of all. The Empire had underestimated them, but they had learned from every defeat and used it to grow stronger. In the heart of the Empire's command fleet, Admiral N'Kal was preparing for the final assault. His forces were immense, but the humans had shown themselves to be resilient. It was a reality he had not expected, and it infuriated him. "We will crush them," N'Kal declared to his officers. "They will bow before the might of the Empire. This ends today." But even as he spoke those words, doubts began to creep in. The human resistance had proven resourceful. They had taken down the Empire's most advanced technology and disrupted their communication systems. They had managed to evade and outthink the Empire at every turn. N'Kal had underestimated humanity, and now he had to deal with the consequences. On Earth, the Resistance fighters prepared for one last mission. They were going to launch a direct attack on the heart of the Empire's invasion force. The final strike would be risky, but they had no choice. They had to destroy the Empire's main power source, the one thing that kept their entire war machine running. Maria and her team set out toward the Empire's last stronghold, a massive fortress that stood like an iron wall against the human forces. It was surrounded by thick layers of defense and heavily armed soldiers, but the humans had a plan. "We take this fortress, and the Empire will have no choice but to retreat," Maria said, as she and her team moved into position. As they approached, the Empire's soldiers were already preparing for the final defense. The sound of weapons charging and the hum of energy shields filled the air. But the humans had an advantage. They knew the terrain, and they had the element of surprise. With quick, calculated movements, they attacked. Explosions shook the ground as they infiltrated the fortress's defenses. It was a fight like no other. The Empire's soldiers fought fiercely, but the Resistance fighters were relentless. Every step they took brought them closer to the heart of the Empire's power. Through narrow hallways and tight corridors, they fought. There were losses, but the humans pressed on, determined not to let this be the end. The Empire had ruled over countless worlds, but Earth would not be one of them. Maria's team reached the control room, the last obstacle between them and victory. The room was heavily guarded, but they had come too far to turn back now. With one final push, they breached the doors and fought their way through the last of the Empire's forces. Finally, they'd reached the central control unit. The machine that powered the Empire's war effort was right in front of them. One well-placed charge would bring it all down. Maria turned to her team, her face set with determination. "We end this now," she said. With a swift motion, the charge was placed. The countdown began. Outside, the human fleet engaged the Empire's remaining warships in a final desperate battle. The sky was filled with explosions as the humans fought with everything they had. The Empire's massive ships were taking heavy damage, and one by one, they began to fall. As the countdown reached 0, the control unit exploded in a brilliant burst of light. The shockwave tore through the Empire's fortress, and the sound of the explosion was heard across the battlefield. The Empire's forces on Earth were thrown into disarray. Maria and her team watched as the Empire's command structure collapsed. The war had turned in their favor. The Empire's fleet, now leaderless, began to retreat, unable to recover from the devastating blow. "We did it," Maria said, her voice filled with relief. The war was over. The humans had won. Against all odds, they had driven the Empire off their planet. They had fought with courage, unity, and the unwavering belief that freedom was worth fighting for. The Empire had underestimated humanity. They thought they could crush the human spirit. But in the end, it was the humans who had shown them what true power was.